the Cavs are now leading the Orlando Magic 3-2, thanks in large part to Darius Garland finally showing the aggression we've been waiting for quite a long time, Jason.
Yeah, and let's give credit to Marcus Morris as well. JB Bickerstaff made a long overdue, probably, lineup change, paid huge dividends in Game 5.
We'll break it all down and more coming up right now on the Ultimate Cavaliers Show. Well, Jason Lloyd, as always, joining me today. I'm Mikey McNuggets, and after 2 horrific games in Orlando, Jason, I was worried we were going to come on today and just have essentially a funeral for the Cleveland Cavaliers. But instead, we got a heroic performance across the board from the Cavs, a gritty, gutsy, hard-nosed, and hard-fought victory. And there were quite a few things from that game that we didn't see on the road that we're going to break down today. But it all starts with Darius Garland, who scored 17 first-quarter points, unlocking the rest of this Cavs offense. And I got some film and some plays to showcase what Darius did that was different from earlier in this series. But before we do that, Jason, what impressed you most about Darius Garland's 17-point first quarter?
The willingness to look for his shot, or the aggressiveness, I guess, in looking for his shot. He talked about it at length really during the off days of the series, that guys were getting on him, and coaches and teammates were saying, you have to be more aggressive. You have to be more aggressive. We talked about it on the show. There really is no great explanation for why he stopped looking for his shot. You can say it's a point guard, and that there's some validity to that, point guards have other responsibilities. You're trying to keep other people involved. But ultimately, when you're one of the top scorers on the team, you've got to look for your shot, and you've got to take your shot. And it was good to see, for at least one night, old Darius was back. And he looked like the Darius Garland that we've come to know over the last few years.
Yeah, and some of the plays that we're going to break down here in a sec look very, and in a good way, eerily similar to 2021, 2022 Darius Garland, and even the best parts of his season last year. He has gone away from a lot of the stuff we're about to show you guys throughout the regular season. It could be for a myriad of different reasons. The injury, the broken jaw, losing weight, I don't want to say afraid of contact, but his hesitation to draw more contact to potentially injure himself again. But last night in a series that was tied at 2 games apiece, knowing how much was at stake in Game 5, Darius put that all behind him, played balls to the wall, and it paid giant dividends for your Cleveland Cavaliers. So, Jason, let's get into video mode here and show the first video. These are the first 2 drives of the game from Darius Garland. He attacks the Magic defense in transition, 3-on-1. Not necessarily the greatest shot in the world, but draws the foul. And here might be his best move of the series. Blows right by Gary Harris, forces Jamal Mosley to call a timeout. In this replay, and they'll show again, this is not when you want Darius to attack, but hey, if they're going to give you a gap, that's the aggression we've been begging for, Darius. And it worked out. And then once again, in transition, hesitation, 1 dribble, Harris stands up and he blows by him. Yep. That's what we've been waiting. That's what we've been begging from Darius Garland. And it was good to see last night. And when he does stuff like that, it sets up this part of his game, Jason, the 3-point shots. Darius Garland has been shooting a high percentage, but not taking enough threes. And last night, and this play in particular, I'm going to pause it right here. Mo Wagner's playing way off.
Yeah.
That's drop coverage to the extreme, and I actually like the little back screen Sam Merrill setting. It looks like they were setting up something else, but that's Tristan Thompson setting the screen. He's not the lob threat that Jared Allen or an Evan Mobley is. So Darius says, okay, you're going to go over the screen, and Wagner's going to play and drop. That's a ton of space. I'm going to plant my feet and hit a pull-up jump shot. And if this plays, you see it right there, cash money. So now he's in the rhythm. The third 3 he hits in the first quarter, Jason, just immense skill. This is why it's so frustrating when Darius Garland isn't being aggressive, because he can make shots like that on a consistent basis. And there aren't a ton of guys across the NBA who can do that like DG can when he's feeling confident.
And you know what is different about this is he's not dribbling as much. Like he just gets into these, I don't know if it's a rut or what, where all he's doing is dribble. It just feels like he was more decisive with the ball last night, if that's a thing.
It is. And you go back to the games against Orlando. We showed this the other day. But this was game 4 against Orlando, and the Magic were essentially saying the same thing. Darius, we're giving you space. You got to be the one to beat us. And just like the rest of his teammates in Orlando, Darius was unable to capitalize on the opportunities. I'll let this play one more time, and this is a setup for what we saw last night. But once again, Space to drive. Jalen Suggs is not really there. He's sliding through. It just looks like a fake defender.
Yeah.
Mo Wagner does not contest. Keep that in mind. He does not contest there. Here, once again, Mo Wagner decides, I'm not going to jump. Watch it. I'll pause it again. There's no contest from Mo Wagner. That is a conscious decision, and I will show you what that means in a sec, for Mo Wagner not to contest the shot from Darius Garland. Fast forward to last night. This is the third quarter, second half of the game. Darius Garland goes right past Franz Wagner, and Wendell Carter Jr. stunts and gets back. He does not leave the help on Evan Mobley there, and I'll spot shout in a sec to show you again. But this is the third quarter. We saw them do this in Orlando, where the big shows but refuses to leave his actual defender, the guy he's guarding, to contest a shot. Here he is. Watch the little stunt, Jason. That's important because on the fourth quarter possession where Darius drives, they changed it up. So I'm going to pause this real quick. This is the fourth quarter. 100-98, 45 seconds left. The biggest offensive possession of the game for the Cavs. We saw in games 3 and 4. Orlando content with allowing Darius Garland to take those shots at the rim, right? We saw earlier in the game, content with allowing Darius Garland to take those shots at the rim. Well, Darius was aggressive and made those shots. So push comes to shove. We can't allow Darius to do that. And this is what makes Darius Garland special when he plays like this. Drive, Carter Jr. leaves Mobley, steps up to contest, and that's a hell of a pass from Darius Garland. I'll freeze frame it again here. You'll see Wendell Carter Jr. right there.
Yep.
He make the decision. Am I going? Am I not? Am I going? Am I not? He decides to go. And Jason, I'll let you talk over this. This is going to replay the two plays again. But within the same game, you see two separate coverages from Wendell Carter Jr. in particular on how he had to guard Darius Garland. And it's a direct correlation to how aggressive he was in the first quarter.
And we've seen, and like that's the give and take of the playoffs. So if a guy's getting hot like that, you have to change the coverages, and good on Darius to recognize it, see him coming, and then find Mobley, because in the first quarter that wasn't there. In the first quarter, Wendell didn't leave him, but in the fourth quarter he does. It just felt like Darius was locked in last night. It felt like he was seeing everything well. We've seen so many times in this series where it just didn't look like he was seeing it. You already showed some of the passes in Orlando that it was like, what did you see there? What were you trying to accomplish there? And I think you said it well. Just the aggression off the rip makes everything else flow for him.
Yeah. So he scored 17 in the first quarter, and that's awesome. Now he scored 6 points the rest of the game. You need to see that aggression throughout. Orlando shifted coverages. They put Jonathan Isaac on him in the fourth quarter, which is the ultimate sign of respect. Jonathan Isaac is 6'10" with a 7'4" wingspan, guarding 6'1" Darius Garland.
And that's going to create mismatches elsewhere.
Yeah. But to JB Bickerstaff's credit and the coaching staff's credit, Donovan Mitchell is typically a two guard. He can play a little bit of the one, but he's typically a two guard. Jason, Darius, more traditional one. And they've told us time after time after time. We have the data to back up our belief that Darius can play off ball, right? Mm-hmm. They've told you that. They've said it publicly. They swear by the data that those two can coexist in the backcourt because Darius Garland is comfortable playing off the ball. I'm not sure my personal eye test matches up to that assessment yet. And Jason, before I show you some things the Cavs did in the third and fourth quarter last night to make me believe they're playing to their strengths now with those two guards together, big picture, are you confident in the long run that these two guards, and I don't want to divulge off what happened, but just before we get into the specifics of last night, are you as confident as the Cavs that those two still fit in the backcourt together?
No.
Okay.
No. I still think that they're going to have to make some – I mean, unless this team goes just on an unbelievable heater over the next month and a half, I still think that they're going to have some hard decisions to make this summer. I
completely agree with that assessment. And in the second half last night, you saw Donovan, who, to his credit, scored 24 points in the 14 points, in the fourth quarter. He had 28 in the game. But he was hobbled, Jason. And you and I were there. You you got much better media seat than I do, so you're even closer than I am. He looks about 70%. And I thought he looked really good in game one after that 9-day rest. And he doesn't look as bad as he had looked for stretches in March, but he definitely doesn't look 100%. So what did the Cavs do? The Cavs said when we needed buckets, especially coming out of timeouts, and the next two plays I'm going to show you were the very first play of the second half and the Cavs' first possession of the fourth quarter. So two plays that were drawn up specifically by the coaching staff to get a look they want. They look eerily similar. And it's Donovan at the point guard and Darius in the off-ball action. 3 months ago, that's switched. It's Darius setting up Donovan. Mm-hmm. But because Donovan's hampered or hobbled and has limited ability to drive, kick, and create due to his injury, they're going to Darius in these situations. And before last night, that had been an abomination. Last night, it worked with pretty damn good results. And Jason, these are back-to-back plays, and I'll show you in a sec. This is the very first possession of the third quarter. Darius is in the corner, comes off a pin-down screen from Max Strus, drives, Wendell drops, hits the little floater. He's taking what the defense is giving him there. Nice little set from the Cavs. They get Darius coming off a pin-down, tough to trail that action. Wendell Carter Jr. lays back. He's worried about the lob from Evan Mobley. Little floater. The defense is going to give that to you. That's what you have to take. Darius, once again, making the right read. He's not doing anything crazy here. Wendell Carter Jr. steps up. You throw the lob. He stays back. You take the floater. That was the very first possession of the third quarter. I'm going to show you the first offensive possession of the fourth quarter. You ready for this, Jason?
Yeah.
I'll let you describe it because it's going to look awfully similar. But here it is. First possession of the fourth quarter. Same exact action. They set it up a tiny bit differently.
Yeah,
but the exact same action. Let's get Darius coming uphill. This time it's Joe Ingles. He tries to hedge. Darius reads it instinctually. Mo Wagner's in drop coverage. Hits the little floater.
Yep.
How many times have we been asking Darius, hey, where'd the floater game go? Where's the mid-range game? Because that's what the defense is giving you. It hadn't been there. Last night, he's reading the defense quick, making the right decisions. And when he's playing fast and instinctual like that, Jason, I think that's the best version of Darius Garland.
It's just making shots. Like you showed the clip earlier of blowing the layup at Orlando. Like that should be his bread and butter. That should be a money shot. I know like mid-range has gone away and it's threes or layups right now, but across the NBA. But this is a good action for him that should be there all the time. For as pick and roll heavy as the Cavs are, that's the type of action that should always be there, available to him.
And they can set this up 100 different ways.
Yeah.
It's just an inverted, or not inverted, but a side pick and roll coming off a handoff. Like, same thing with the first play in the third quarter. It's not a crazy, tricky set, but when you're creating movement and you're forcing the defense to follow you along, it's harder to get your feet set and be in the right position on switches. And it puts big guys like Wendell Carter Jr. here in a disadvantage where you have to pick your poison. Yeah. The Cavs last night, time and time again, ran some things that they've run throughout the series. It's what they executed more cleanly yesterday. And that starts with A, Darius being aggressive. So you have to force two defenders to at least pay attention to him. And B, as simple as it sounds, Jason, they made jump shots.
Yeah.
Like, I know it sounds crazy, but a lot of times it is truly as simple as that. So Darius being aggressive opens up opportunities for Donovan, for Strus, for Mobley when Jared Allen comes back. It opens up all that, and we'll wrap up the Darius part of the show with this. Were you in Donovan's press conference, or did you go to the locker room after?
I was in the locker room. I heard the first question, I think, and then I went to the locker room.
So somebody asked, I forget who asked the question, when Darius is aggressive, how does that impact you? Yada, yada, yada. And then the follow-up was, well, what'd you tell Darius after today's game? And Donovan said, he looked at the box score. He goes, Darius took 16 shots. I like it. But the first thing I do when I see him after this is I'm going to tell him, shoot the ball more. Like, be even more aggressive. So 16 shots, 9 of 16, 3 of 5 is awesome. For the Cavs to be at their peak, they need even more aggression from Darius Garland, especially if Jared Allen's not going to be on the court.
I don't think 20 shots is too much for Darius. Do you? I don't think it's 20.
No.
I don't think it's too
not at all. I think that's right in the wheelhouse for him personally.
Yeah, I do too. And again, it's a little wonky when it's your point guard, but Kyrie was like that when Kyrie was here. Kyrie was one of the top primary scorers and taking 20, 22, 24, 25 shots a night. So, yeah, I think if you have Darius around 20 shots, if he's running the pick and roll game, if he's making those floaters in mid-range, you got a really good chance of winning those nights.
I agree. All right, Jason, let's talk a little bit about a change to the lineup JB Bickerstaff made last night after a quick word from FanDuel. It is winner take all time in the NBA and NHL, and FanDuel is giving you a shot to bring home a big win of your own. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 to bet on spreads, money lines, player props, and more. So visit FanDuel.com/UCSS and make every playoff shot count. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Well, Jason, it took a little longer than most would have wanted, but JB Bickerstaff made the move a lot of us have been calling for all series now, which was to play Marcus Morris over George Niang, partially without Jared Allen. They had to go a little bigger. But Marcus Morris, 12 points, 4-9 from the floor, 2 threes, a clutch one in the fourth quarter that tied the game back up at 90. He provided some toughness, some rebounding. Jason, what was your impression of Marcus Morris's true playoff debut for the Cavs last night?
Really impressive. And what makes it interesting, if you look at like 30,000-foot view, a lot of times these buyout guys aren't really contributors. Like they don't really they're not very impactful in the playoffs. We saw it last year with Danny Green. You know, the Cavs picked him up on the buyout market, and I kept saying, you got to try and play him. You got to try and play him just because he can make a shot. Well, Danny had one good leg. He was dragging one leg up and down the floor, and he just couldn't help them last year. Darren Williams back in the championship window. Darren Williams was a buyout guy. Big name. Bring him in. Think, all right, he can really add something. Wasn't really an impactful veteran like you would think his name to be. And, you know, Marcus is a guy who JB liked. He said he's known him since he was a kid, and they pursued him on the buyout market. I think they liked him at the trade deadline, but didn't know where he would really crack the rotation and didn't really have a ton of assets to give up. So they sort of played that hand well and waited him out. And then, you know, when he was released, they went and picked him up and brought him in for situations just like this, really. And you never know for sure how much a guy's really going to help you or not. And we said before the series, you know, there's going to be a moment where Tristan Thompson and or Marcus Morris could help them, even if it's just a 3 or 4 minute stretch. Somewhere along the line, these guys are going to help. And then sure enough, last night, Jared Allen goes down and Tristan has to step in that spot, and they make the lineup switch. George Niang, God love him, he can't hit a bull's ass with a cup of rice right now. So you have to sit him down and try someone else there. And Morris came in and delivered. He's another one of these playoff tested guys. He's not afraid of the moment. I remember the Detroit series when he was in 2016, the year the Cavs won the championship. He was on the Pistons in the first round. And I remember one play where he basically tried to separate Kevin Love's head and sternum from the rest of his body. And that's just who he's just a physical presence. And JB was saying last night, he'll talk, but he'll back up that talk too. Yeah. And he and Tristan got into it in the 2018 playoffs, the Cavs-Celtics series in 2018. And those two loved to bark, and they were barking at each other. Now here they are as teammates. So it's been a great pickup. It's been another one of those guys on the margins. You're not really sure what's left, if he can really help or not. He can help this team, and he showed it last night.
Sometimes it's crazy how you get to point C. And I'm going to call Marcus Morris playing last night point C. Because to get to point C, point A is Dean Wade getting hurt. Marcus Morris does not see the court if Dean Wade's healthy.
Yeah.
Point B is George Niang, to what you said, and God bless his soul, because I really like George, not being able to hit a shot. So Marcus needs Dean to get hurt and George Niang to have his worst playoff series of his career, and not just be close, but like significantly worse than what you thought was his worst possible playoff series, for Marcus Morris to get a chance. Marcus Morris is a guy, Jason, who on any given night can give you what the Cavs got last night. 12 points, timely shooting, toughness, defense. I'm also terrified that if he has to play in Game 6, he could shoot the Cavs out of Game 6. He might go 1 for 12 in Game 6, and he's the guy, and you need this. He's an irrational confidence guy, which you need coming off the bench. Like, I don't say that in a bad way, but he's not going to be deterred by missing 4, 5, 6, 7 straight shots. He's still going to step up and shoot it. So that does give me a little bit of hesitation to how much of a consistent role he'll play in the Cavs rotation moving forward, but he certainly deserves and has earned the right to play the first minutes in that stretch 4, first big off the bench spot over George Niang.
Yeah.
Last night, 2 things about what Marcus Morris did that really stood out to me. One, anytime Orlando cut through the lane when he was in, he was throwing an elbow, Jason. Little forearm, little elbow. And I tried to explain this on the show today, and I'm not quite sure Bull understood what I was saying, but if you drive to the lane and you take 7, 8, 9, 10 elbows from Marcus Morris, trust me,
yes,
you're going to think twice about doing it the 11th, 12th time. And by the end of the game, and Marcus Morris, in no world did I ever fathom Marcus Morris and the Cavs closing 5. We had how many discussions during the season? Can you play Jared Allen and Evan Mobley together? Is Darius in your closing 5 with Donovan? Yeah. Is it Strus? Is it Okoro? Is it Wade? Well, none of us ever freaking said Marcus Morris, and guess who was in the closing five for the Cavs in the most significant stretch of their entire season? It was buyout man Marcus Morris. He had the clutch box out on the Evan Mobley block, which we'll show in a sec. He makes 2 threes in the fourth quarter, one to tie the game, one to cut the lead back to 2. He's physical, he communicates on defense, and he gives the Cavs the best of both worlds. He's not the defender nor the rebounder that Jared Allen is, or Evan Mobley. Offensively, the other two are probably better than him, but they can't shoot like him. So when you play Morris and either of the bigs, last night it was Evan Mobley, you still get a bit of that spacing. And Jason, an interesting stat. In the 17 minutes last night that Marcus Morris and Evan Mobley shared the floor, Marcus Morris played 26 minutes. 17 of those came alongside Evan Mobley. The Cavs had a 129 offensive rating.
Wow.
Make of that what you wish.
Wow.
It is one game. It is a 17-minute sample size.
Yeah.
The Cavs' offensive rating, a game in which they only scored 104 points, was 129 in the 17 minutes Evan Mobley and Marcus Morris shared the court.
Well, it's significant because they couldn't even get to 100. Like for them to even break 100, and we'll get into a little bit of that probably here coming up in a minute of how they got there and just the floor spacing that Morris provides. But you have to run it back out there and try it again. And you're right. He could be 2 of 12 in game 6, and you could be coming back here for a game 7. But he certainly earned the opportunity to go out there and do it again.
I want to show you guys one play from last night. This came in the first quarter. And Marcus Morris is in the game here. I don't think the Cavs can run this play and or execute this play as well as they did if you don't have Morris, who you can see standing to the right of Darius Garland here, because of the spacing he provides. I'm going to let this run through, then I'll talk about why I like this play so much. But this is it's not out of a timeout. This is just a set they had. It's a great pass from Mobley, and that was part of Darius Garland's 17-point first quarter. But they get the switch. There's the screen. Marcus Morris is a shooting threat, so you can't leave him. You get another switch here. Banchero's watching the ball. It's a great back screen, but that's Morris in the corner now, and you can't leave Marcus Morris in the corner wide open. If that's Jared Allen, that corner help can sag in, and maybe it's not blocking the shot from Darius Garland, but it's certainly giving a type of contest. But because that's Marcus Morris in the corner, Jalen Suggs can't help off, and I'll run it through one more time, but Jalen Suggs is in a position leave Marcus Morris wide open for 3, or give Darius a backdoor layup, and another great pass by Mobley. Jason, I don't remember them ever running this play during the regular season.
No.
And maybe that's because of the limitations of Mobley and Allen together, that they're not forcing the defense to space out like Morris did. But I love this set from JB last night, and it worked to perfection.
And it doesn't work. I mean, Mobley's on the floor, but it doesn't work if Mobley and Allen are both on the floor. That play probably doesn't work.
There's just not the spacing for it. So
yeah. And
I thought it was a nice little wrinkle and another testament to what some things work with certain situations, and why things don't work in others.
And this is why we keep going back to the 1 and 4 out conversation that we were having and that's why, I think they have to take a hard look, unless they go on some massive heater. You have to take a hard look at Darius and Donovan in the backcourt. You got to look at Jared and Evan in the front court, because that one is even more telling to me that, guys, it's just not going to work because of that play you just – and not just that play. There are hundreds of examples of when it's 1 in and 4 out of the things you can do like that you just can't do when they're on the floor together. And Evan's 3-point shot is coming along. It's not where we thought it would be. He's had moments in this playoff series, particularly early in game 1. Hasn't really had any since then. I still haven't given up on him being a 3-point shooter. I still think he could get there for sure. But we can't worry about later. You got to worry about it's May 1st, and you're fighting for your life in the first round. And if Jarrett, we'll wait and see if he can play in game 6 or not. But the 1 in and 4 out is the way to go as much as you can. I just don't know how much they can actually get there in the series when Jarrett's healthy and on the floor. And
Jason, I saved this point just for this show. I did not mention what I'm about to say on UCSS today. I did not mention it on the Bleacher Report stream. I did not mention it on the post-game stream last night because I needed one nugget to save to make anyone who tunes into this worth it, to not hear me repeat myself for the 4th time. Darius Garland had 17 points in the first quarter. Is it any coincidence that he was at his most aggressive when the floor was spaced to the max it had been in this entire series? Is it just a coincidence that because there was an extra shooter on the floor and Orlando did not have 2 7-footers in the paint, Darius was all of a sudden unafraid to attack with reckless abandon because he wasn't afraid of getting hit? Is it just a coincidence that Darius Garland is now shooting because the guys can't compact the lane and they have to make these decisions because the other help defenders are spread out? I think not.
No, the answer is no.
Not. So it all comes together. And one last thing, and only because I cut this, Jason, and I want to give Marcus Morris one last shout out because he deserves it. The Mobley block was terrific last night. But the underrated part of the block is the box out from Marcus Morris, who's boxing out Wendell Carter Jr. here.
Yeah.
How often have we seen that turn into an offensive rebound, put back, tie game? Marcus Morris puts an ass right into Wendell Carter Jr.'s hip. Great box out, and that seals the game for the Cavs. So shout out to Marcus Morris. Everything you could have asked for last night from him, he delivered, and the Cavs are going to need that again come game 6 or game 7, however long this goes. But that was a hell of a performance off the bench from a guy that I don't think the Cavs truly expected to be part of their rotation at any point this series.
Certainly not to this extent that it looks like he's about to be. I thought he could help them in small spurts. They're going to need more than a small spurt.
All right, let's take one more break, and then we will talk about some Game 6 adjustments. But first, a word from Monopoly Go. Yeah, you guys know I'm a competitive person. I have a competitive side. We all do. And my competitive side is a big fan of Monopoly Go. I'm sure you heard of it by now. It's been downloaded over 150 million times. It's a great twist on Monopoly where you play on not one, but hundreds of big boards in crazy locations, building up amazing cities to bring you big-time money. The best part, you can mess with your friends too. I can charge them rent on my iconic properties, just like classic Monopoly. I can also rob their vaults for riches for myself and the leaderboards. Show me who the biggest Monopoly tycoon is, but it's not just my competitive side that loves it. You can team up with friends and people all around the world in time tournaments to earn huge rewards. So get in on the game and join your friends. Download Monopoly Go for free on the App Store or Google Play. Jason, Game 6 is on Friday. I don't think I told you this, but I'm going to be at a wedding on Friday in Boston where the entire bride's family is from Orlando and are diehard Magic fans. So I will not be doing a post-game show Friday because I'll be at this wedding and we'll be at least 23 drinks in. But I will be there with at least 50 diehard Magic fans. And if you don't think that we will have the game on in some capacity, you're out of your mind. So maybe I'll do a post-game show just hammered. We'll play that. We'll play that by ear. But
I didn't know the Magic had 50 diehard fans.
And they've been forever. I've known his fiance since college. They've been together since college. And they were like true Magic fans.
Wow. I didn't know they existed. I incited, I thought was all of Magic Nation, which was 7 of them when I said Franz Wagner is a mid-tier player.
Yeah. Well, kudos to, I actually want to give shout out to Magic fans because they've infiltrated our YouTube page. And
I'm sure they're infuriated.
Some have been friendly, some have been not friendly, but it's cool to see when we get series like this.
Oh yeah.
How many people from other cities come and be like, I wish we had a show like this.
Yeah.
I always appreciate it. So Orlando Magic fans, you guys are welcome.
Love that you're here. You're welcome anytime, but Franz Wagner is very much a mid-tier player. I'm sorry. So
Paolo Banchero is not Jason. And in Game 6, the Cavs are going to have to find a different way to try and slow him down. He had 39 points last night, 14 of 24, was 4 of 7 from 3, 7 of 8 from the line, 8 rebounds, 4 assists. And I know you wrote about that last night, but the Cavs throughout the entirety of the game did not adjust or change their coverage of Paolo a single bit. And he looked all the parts of a budding superstar last night against the Cleveland Cavaliers. What would you do if you're JB to try and slow him down in Game 6?
Well, it goes back to, you talked about this before the series, that let him go. Let Paolo go. If he scores 50, he scores 50. And it's everyone else. You can't let everyone else beat you when he's getting everybody else involved. And it sort of feels like that's what they did. I was really impressed with him because it was on the road. That felt like the Paolo Banchero coming out party. Mm-hmm. And I wrote after the game, LeBron and KD and Steph, those guys are gone. And it just feels like a changing of the guard in the NBA this year, this postseason, with Anthony Edwards, SGA, and OKC. And Paolo's in that group for sure. He belongs in that tier. I liked him as a player. I thought he would be really, really good in time. He's better already than I thought he was in watching him in this series.
Oh, he's phenomenal.
The Carmelo Anthony comparisons, I think, are spot on. Looks with the headband, just the way that he moves on the floor, his ability to get to his shot. Yeah, just the ability to get to his shot whenever he wants. he's carrying this franchise. Like, he's carrying the whole team. And that was a really big, and it's funny because when I was watching that game last night, and I was watching Banchero sort of emerge and take that step, because I think last night was a big step for him. I thought back to 2015 NBA Finals, the Cavs-Warriors series. Cavs go up 2-1 at home. They win Game 3, 2-1 at home. And David Griffin, the Cavs GM at the time, was outside the locker room with his hands folded and his head down, shaking his head. And you would think he'd be elated, right? Like, you'd think he'd be like, we're up in the series. We don't have Kevin. We don't have Kyrie. And yet we're up in the series 2-1. And Griff was shaking his head, and he said, they figured it out, like Steph figured it out. And even in a loss, Steph's performance in Game 3 was a signal to the Cavs.
Yeah.
And I just kept thinking about that moment last night watching Banchero, of like, he almost did it last night. And going home now for 6, if he can do it at home at 6, he's the best player in the series. Like, whether it's Donovan, whether it's the knee, or whatever it is, or whether even Donovan healthy, Paolo Banchero is the best player in the series. And when we rated the players, we drafted him prior to the series, you and I both put Donovan 1 and Banchero 2. Well, after seeing the first 5 games, Paolo Banchero is number 1 on my board. He's the best player in the series.
Yeah, he's been incredible. I stand by the fact that the Cavs' best defensive strategy is to let Paolo go one-on-one and just make damn near impossible jump shot after damn near impossible jump shot. Because if you look last night, he had 40 points, 39. No one else scored more than 14.
I know.
And they didn't shoot particularly great from the floor. You know, Franz missed a couple shots. He was 3 of 11. Jalen Suggs missed a couple open ones. He was 0 of 5 from 3, had some good looks. But you live with long twos over open threes, because once those guys we saw in games 3 and 4, once they make a few shots, the floodgates can open.
Yeah.
So I'm still stick to my original premise that the Cavs' best strategy is to let Paolo go one-on-one and take those long twos. However, I don't love the idea of just letting him see the exact same coverage every single time. Because eventually, just like a quarterback will figure out some sort of defensive scheme, Paolo understood exactly how the Cavs were guarding him, and he was able to get to the spots and get the shots that he wanted. I'm not setting doubles. I'm not necessarily trapping him, but I'm going to stunt. I'm going to show him a couple different help side looks just to make him think. And whether it takes him 1.5 seconds to figure out what the defense is doing on the backside, well, now he's starting his move with 6.5 seconds on the shot clock, not 8. And maybe he's not getting that extra dribble or that extra pump fake to draw the foul. So I'm not changing my overall philosophy that if Paolo wants to take 30 long twos with a hand in his face, that's how they're going to win. But I am going to at least adjust the coverage so it's not every time down the court the same thing copy and pasted time after time after time. I thought what the Cavs did in the fourth quarter, where they finally put Evan Mobley on Paolo Banchero, which they were able to do when they went to the 2 big set, ironically, by playing Marcus Morris, because they had to have Isaac Okoro guard him when Mobley was the only big on the court. Mobley had more success than anyone else guarding Paolo, because at least on those tough jump shots, when he's shooting over Isaac Okoro, God bless Isaac's soul, he's doing literally everything in his power to try and slow him down, but he's giving up 5 inches and 45 pounds at minimum to Banchero. There's just only so much he can do. Right. Mobley, at least from a physical standpoint, can contest the shots in a way that make him alter the release of the ball. So I'm just going to adjust a little bit of the backside stuff just to make him think for half a second, Jason, and hopefully that throws him out of his rhythm. But I stand pat and firm on my initial philosophy and strategy going into this series, which is if Paolo's going to make 24 long twos, that's 48 points. It's better than letting other guys get hot from beyond the arc, which starts the avalanche that could become the Magic offense.
I should have told you this prior to, did you pull the last play by chance, the block, Mobley's block on Wagner? Do you have that?
Of course I do. I thought you'd never ask.
Because here's what's interesting to me. Paolo Banchero is your best player on the floor. He's got, at the time, 36 points. He didn't have the ball. He's setting the screen, and he's wide open at the three-point line. And Mobley and who was it? Both chase Strus. Right, Mobley and Strus both chase Wagner. Paolo is wide open for a 3. He's the best player in the series. He's the hottest player on the floor. And coming off the miss at the Cavs end, one of the Magic players grabs the offensive rebound, flips it to Banchero, and he flips it to Franz. And I felt like watching that back, it felt like, well, first of all, I think Orlando had a timeout and they chose not to use it. So they let the play roll, and you're living and dying with Franz Wagner, a mid-tier player, taking the game-winning shot when you've got Paolo Banchero wide open at the three-point line. I'm just wondering, I'm curious, we haven't had a chance to talk about this. What did you think about the Magic's last set there and Wagner taking that shot? Obviously, Mobley gets the block on it, and Banchero really not even being involved in a game-winning play in the last seconds of the game.
All right, couple things. One, Orlando didn't call. I like not calling a timeout there, for the record. I am very much in favor of not calling a timeout.
I'm ambivalent on that. I see positives and negatives to both. If you've got a money play, if you've got a money go-to play, call a timeout.
Fair.
But if you don't have something that you love in that moment, then let them play.
So Orlando decided to go pick and roll with their two best players. At the end of the day, they got to pick and roll with their two best offensive players. Here you have Strusgaard and Wagner. You have Mobley on Banchero. They set the screen, Jason, and to your point, they both go with Franz.
He has to see that. He has to feel that.
Okay, counterpoint. I don't disagree. But A, he's not looking that way. Time's running down, and he's thinking we need 2 points.
Yeah.
Franz gets a great look here. So we can complain, yeah, maybe you should have kicked it back to Paolo Banchero for a 3. At the end of the day, and I'll pause it again, you have a 6'10 forward who's a pretty good finisher, Jason, with Mobley on your back now and no help side defense because Marcus Morris is not going to leave Wendell Carter Jr. right there. They got a good look. This is a unicorn defensive play from Evan Mobley, who blocks Franz with his left hand. Now, Franz uses his right hand. That's the mistake, Jason. Franz goes up with the right hand on the left side, which allows Evan Mobley to use his left hand to block the shot without fouling. So Franz, the finish was not there. But that's a pretty good look in a crunch time crisis situation. So I'm not going to flame and kill the Magic.
I'm not killing
calling timeout. And I understand that Paolo's open, and in the screenshot, it looks worse than in reality. But right here,
the player to have the ball in his hands at the end of the game.
Right here, like, yes, you could throw it over your head and you get Paolo, and then the Cavs have to rotate. I totally get the point. But I think at the end of the day, the Magic got a pretty damn good look.
They did.
And it was a unicorn defensive type play from Evan Mobley that saved this game from going to overtime rather than poor offensive execution.
I just didn't like Banchero really not being involved. I understand he's the screener, but I don't like him not really having the ball in his hands at the end of the game.
I also, as I'm watching this back 3 times, Jason,
yeah,
I wonder if the plan was for Banchero just to clear, because he floats back. Watch him set the screen. He doesn't roll. He floats back more pick and pop. But, Franz is going forward. Paolo's going.
It's a hard pass at that distance.
Yeah, Paolo's going back. That's a tough look to make. But at the end of the game, let's flip reversals, right? If Max Strus is the one taking the shot for the Cavs instead of giving it to Donovan or Darius, we're all pissed. So sure. I do understand the counter, but I think the Magic got a good look at the end of the day. And if it wasn't for Evan Mobley being a freak of nature defensive unicorn,
they get the best.
Probably 102, and the Cavs have a shot to send it to win it at regulation. If not, worst case, they go to overtime. So I can't kill him for that, but I do see what you're saying.
Yeah, I'm not killing him. I just want my best player, clearly the best player.
Yeah.
I want the ball in his hands. I want him making that decision at the end of the game. That's
fair enough. Jason, we'll wrap in 1 second, but first, the home team has won all 5 games in this series. Game 6 is in Orlando. How much confidence do you have in this Cavs team to be able to pull off a win on the road? And should fans have confidence?
I think we're coming back for Game 7. I picked Cavs in 6 before the series, and watching the way Orlando fought last night, the way that Orlando on the road, a young, inexperienced team. Remember all that talk last year about the Cavs being that young, inexperienced team, and the Knicks tossed them in 5 games, and the Cavs just shriveled at Madison Square Garden. Well, Orlando shriveled a little bit in 1 and 2, and they grew up a lot last night in Game 4, and 5. And I just feel like going back and playing in front of their home crowd again, I think it's coming down to a Game 7 now.
I picked Cavs in 6.
Oh, yeah, you and I both did.
the way this series has gone back and forth, two, not blowouts, but two convincing Cavs wins, two blowouts in Orlando, a complete back and forth, all-time classic last night. I wouldn't be surprised if the Cavs win, but I do think it's going back to a Game 7, which feels like it's appropriate for how this series is gone.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it just feels like this has a Game 7 feel. It's a back and forth affair. Both teams have had moments of greatness. Both teams have had moments where they can't score. And it feels on the road, I'll be pleasantly, listen, I hope they win. I don't want to be at this wedding if they lose. It's 1 on 50. Like, I'm the minority here. So trust me, I'm very much hoping for a win.
Well, if they win, just stay in Boston because the Cavs play at Boston.
I got to go back to Boston for another wedding in 2 weeks.
Oh, my God.
I actually may, if they're on the road, I'm going to try to get a press pass because I'll be there for 3 days. So I'm going to try to go to a Celtics game, Cavs-Celtics, if they're up there. But
well, Game 1 is Sunday if Cavs close this out.
Well, I will be flying out of Boston Sunday morning to come back here. But then I'm back in Boston because then it's my birthday next weekend. Wow. And then the weekend after, I got a different wedding and my other college teammates getting married. So back in the greater Boston area. So I'll be back and forth, but I am going to try, if I am in Boston, in that area, to make it to a Cavs-Celtics game if that's what we get. But so we're both thinking the Magic in 6, Cavs in 7.
Yeah. Yeah, I think
it wouldn't shock me if the Cavs won. Like, I think it's going to be another game just like last night.
Agreed.
I think it's going to be another game just like last night.
I agree with that.
And I said this, and people got mad at me when I said this, Jason. I promise we'll wrap in a sec because we're already heavy. The Cavs got a great Darius Garland first quarter, a great Donovan Mitchell fourth quarter, a heroic defensive effort from Evan Mobley. Max Strus made more threes last night than he had in the entire series, and Marcus Morris gave you 12 points off the bench, and they beat the Magic by 1 at home.
Yep.
So I say that to say, I just think Orlando's going to win Game 6, and it's going to come back to Game 7, and the Cavs are going to win at home, and this is going to be one of those series that the home team wins each and every game because of how much better their role guys play in front of the home crowd.
It very well could be right. It's going to be a hell of a Game 7 if we get to that point.
So that's going to wrap it up for the Ultimate Cavs Show. We appreciate you guys sticking around 8 minutes longer than usual. You are the best fans in the entire Cleveland area, and we do appreciate your guys' continued support. For Jason Lloyd, I'm Mikey McNuggets. We'll see y'all tomorrow on the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show. Peace.